Do you have any idea how much patience it takes for me to put up with this while you're out during the day? Mom helps out during the day, right? I have to work. If I quit my job, I'd be at the mercy of his orders 24/7. The thought made me shudder, and I knew I couldn't quit. But he was still manageable. I expected this much. What I hadn't calculated was my husband. He's helpless, can't you just help him a bit more? But it's for his own good. Dr. Smith said he should do as much as he can by himself. But it doesn't seem like Dad feels that way. Do as much as you can for him. He spoke as if I was making excuses to avoid helping. It looks like I really need to take action now. As I was thinking this, divorce papers arrived from my husband, who was away on a business trip. Okay. Let's file these right away. Are you okay with the kids? Of course. Because My name is Emily. I'm a 42-year-old housewife. I have a son in 7th grade and a daughter in 6th grade. I work part-time for 4 hours a day. I graduated from college, got a job, and met my husband through a colleague when I was 23. He was an elite employee at a major trading company and was 26 at the time. Sophisticated, smart, and fun to talk to, I liked him right away. So when he asked me out, I felt like I was dreaming. I was really happy. After 2 years of dating, we got married. I continued working, but during my first pregnancy, I developed preeclampsia. My dear, both you and our child are important to me. Can you quit your job for now and return to work when the kids are older? I loved my job, so I was conflicted, but I needed to be hospitalized and didn't want to inconvenience my workplace. I accepted his suggestion and quit. I safely gave birth to our son, Adam, and the following year, our daughter, Sarah, was born. I became a mother of 2 and enjoyed a happy life. But an event ended those happy days. 12 years into our marriage, with Adam being 11 and Sarah 10, my father-in-law fell ill. Fortunately, he survived, but he was left needing care. My mom can't handle it alone, so I think we should move in together. What do you think? I honestly struggled with the decision. Their house was about a 30-minute drive away, and we visited occasionally, but I didn't like my father-in-law. He was old-fashioned, believing that women should serve men, and he didn't hide that opinion. When you quit your job to stay home with the kids, that was the right thing to do. Women nowadays are so brazen. Wanting to work even after getting married. He had said this to me with a smile when I quit my job. I had mixed feelings about him, but my mother-in-law was a wonderful person, and the thought of her taking care of him alone was too much to bear. I thought that in my time, once you got married, you quit your job and stayed home. But times have changed. I respect you, Emily, for taking pride in your work. When we got married and I said I'd continue working, he looked displeased, but she stepped in and said that before he could say anything. She often helped smooth things over, preventing major conflicts with him. So, we decided to move in to take care of him. It was a tough decision, but I agreed to it. I was worried about her, who was over 70, and her husband, who couldn't be as strong-willed as he used to be with his condition. And my husband had always considered my position, so I believed he would handle any issues well. But that belief was naive. When are you quitting your job? My father-in-law asked, annoyed, as soon as he found out I was working part-time. I thought you had potential when you quit your job after having Adam. He seemed to think I'd be at home all day, taking care of him. I worked during the day, except on Sundays. I had no intention of quitting the job I'd been doing all this time. That displeased him. We renovated their house, making it barrier-free. They had a considerable estate, and although the house was old, the grounds were spacious. With a wheelchair, he could move around the house freely. He should be able to get where he wanted. We installed handrails inside the house. There are no steps, so even just holding onto them while walking would help with rehabilitation, but he refuses to move on his own at all. He would call for his wife or me to fetch even the smallest items. It would be beneficial for your rehabilitation if you moved around a bit on your own. Shut up. Can't you obey us? Stop ordering me around just because you don't want to move. It was he who didn't want to move, but he insisted on bossing others around. But he was manageable. I expected this much. The real problem was my husband. He's helpless, can't you just help him a bit more? But it's for his own good. Dr. Smith said he should do as much as he can by himself. But it doesn't seem like Dad feels that way. Do as much as you can for him. He spoke as if I was making excuses to avoid helping. We used to raise our kids together, but now he was starting to leave everything to me. Mom is here too. I rely on both of you for Dad, and after all, a mother is the best for the kids. When I tried to discuss things, he acted like it wasn't his responsibility. When it was just the four of us, even though we were busy, we were happy. After the kids went to bed, we had some time together. When he came home early, we enjoyed a drink or watched a popular TV show. Since moving in with them, that time disappeared. I woke up early to prepare breakfast. After sending my husband and kids off, I took care of my father-in-law, then went to my part-time job. My mother-in-law handled lunch, but I shopped and cooked dinner after work. Then, she and I took turns caring for her husband. It was truly exhausting. First, he complained about my job every time. Do you have any idea how much patience it takes for me to put up with this while you're out during the day? Mom helps out during the day, right? I have to work. I told you to quit that job. Ryan spoils you, and you take advantage of it. If I quit my job, I'd be at the mercy of his orders 24/7. The thought made me shudder, and I knew I couldn't quit. I'm sorry. My mother-in-law said to me, sneaking a glance at him. He's always been overbearing, but since he got sick and can't move freely, he's become even more arrogant. I figured she was right. He probably wanted to feel superior by treating us like his personal servants. He wanted to be the one giving orders, while we were the ones obeying. But it's enough that I endure it. You should do what you feel is right, Emily. She seemed to have resigned herself to her fate. I had no intention of becoming his victim. I wanted her to have more freedom, but I didn't know how to convey that to her. Thinking about it always left me frustrated. A year into living with them, things took a turn for the worse. His health deteriorated rapidly. Though he was almost bedridden, he continued to verbally abuse his wife and me. Can't you be more efficient? I suffer because you don't put your heart into it. What kind of daughter-in-law are you? Frustrated with his immobile body, he constantly threw such remarks at us. She would defend me, but then he would turn his physical aggression towards her. The women in this house are useless. After all these years of putting up with you, I end up in this state. I really have no luck. Saying this, he would throw newspapers or magazines at her, probably because he felt too weak to use his own strength. I often spoke up against him, but each time, it made him take it out on her even more. Eventually, I just quietly took care of him. I told my husband about it, but since he wasn't involved in the actual caregiving, he remained indifferent. There's nothing I can do. I trust you and Mom to handle his care well. He would just brush me off. I'm really busy with work right now. Please manage until things settle down. When he brought up his work, I couldn't argue. The house renovation had been quite expensive. Our savings have dwindled, so I need to work hard to make it up. He was right, so I had to give up on discussing my father-in-law's care with him. Then, things got even worse. Perhaps from seeing us silently enduring his grandfather's abuse, Adam started treating us poorly too. Hurry up and get it done. You're really inefficient. I tried to tell myself it was just the changes of entering middle school. But I couldn't believe that was all it was. He directed harsh words at us and even Sarah. How can you talk like that? Apologize. Shut up. A woman shouldn't talk back to a man. He would throw things and slam doors, just like a younger version of his grandfather. My feelings of affection for him were being replaced by disgust, and now I rarely talk to him unless necessary. I asked my husband to discipline him, but he wouldn't take it seriously. He is in 7th grade, right? It's just a phase. I went through it too. Do you really think that after seeing his terrible behavior? I saw it, but it wasn't that bad. He's not being violent. Adam hadn't been physically violent yet. But the loud noises and throwing things, how is that not violence? So we should just wait until he gets violent? I'm not saying that. Just keep an eye on him. He spoke as if it didn't matter. I realized it was useless to talk to him. As I resigned myself to this reality, another change came into our lives. My father-in-law passed away. It was sudden, in the second year of living together. His illness worsened, and he had a severe attack. After the chaotic funeral and memorial services, life returned to normal. Normal life. What does that even mean? Over these 2 years, I had completely forgotten what a normal life was. If my life before living with my husband's parents and taking care of his father was normal, then my current life was far from normal. I wake up in the morning, prepare breakfast, and send my husband and children off before going to my part-time job. After work, I go shopping, prepare dinner, do the household chores, and then go to bed at night. If this was considered a normal life, then yes, I had returned to normal. But my heart was still restless. My mother-in-law had the same look. "What should we do now?" she asked me, looking troubled. It seemed I had come to a time when I needed to make some important decisions. Adam was still like a small version of his grandfather. In fact, his behavior got worse, as if trying to make up for his grandfather's absence. "Shut up. Don't order me around." He said this the other day and ended up pushing Sarah. "How could you do that?" Fortunately, she fell onto the sofa and wasn't hurt. She deserved it. She's just my sister, who does she think she is telling me what to do? Women should just listen to men. She had only told him to throw away his own snack wrappers. "Adam, you should throw away your own trash. Even little kids know to do that." That's all she said before he shouted at her and pushed her. He was completely out of control. How did he become like this? I told my husband about Adam finally turning violent towards the family, but his response was the same as always. They were just roughhousing. Every family has arguments like that. It wasn't just that. He will grow bigger and stronger, and things will get worse. Please say something before it does. Okay. I'll talk to him when I get a chance. By the way, I'm leaving for a business trip tomorrow. With that, he left for a long business trip the next day. Watching his retreating figure, I muttered to myself. It looks like I really need to take action now. As I was contemplating what to do, divorce papers arrived from my husband, who was on the trip. A plain brown envelope. I opened it, wondering what it was, and found the papers inside. My hands trembled as I held the green document. He must think I'm devastated. But that wasn't it. I laughed at his blatant move, which made my hands tremble. So, now that his father's care was no longer needed, I was disposable. He's so transparent. How much more can he belittle me? I decided to sign the papers immediately. Okay. Let's file these right away. Are you sure? What about the kids? My mother-in-law asked worriedly as I hummed and filled out the papers. I'm fine. He doesn't know anything, anyway. All right, it's done. I wanted to submit it right away, but that would be hasty. I should handle things properly and submit it on my own terms. Still, having the papers in hand was a big step. I'll wait for him to come back and have a proper discussion. That's probably best. It's sad, but he brought this on himself. She looked pitying, but it wasn't directed at me, it was for her foolish son. A few days later, he returned from his trip. So, you signed it, right? That was the first thing he said. Before that, I have a question. Why do you want a divorce? I asked calmly, and he looked a bit surprised. He probably expected me to cry or beg. But I wasn't going to do that. I just wanted to hear his reason. What exactly makes you want a divorce? I rephrased my question. This might make it easier for him to answer. He is still staring at my face. He looks somewhat anxious. Why do you think? Using underhanded tactics. Since it's difficult for him to speak up himself, he intends to let me answer and somehow take control of the conversation. I don't know, that's why I'm asking. Please answer the question. His face clearly showed his anxiety. You don't care about me anymore. Not care? When did I ever do that? You made all the decisions about the kids and everything else without consulting me. I was stunned. He had always brushed off everything as someone else's problem. You seem to have forgotten, so let me remind you, you never listened to me whenever I tried to discuss anything. Maybe because I spoke to him like he was a child, he looked furious. Is that how you talk to your husband? Know your place. He shouted, thinking I would be intimidated. Raising your voice doesn't affect me. I'm used to it from your father and son. I said with a mocking laugh. He turned red with anger and glared at me. Again, I tried to discuss many things with you, but you were always indifferent. That's a lie. I never ignored you. Then, would you listen to this? I took out a voice recorder and played it. It captured our conversations where he responded disinterestedly to my attempts to discuss things. Why the hell did you record this? Because I thought you might say something like this someday. So I recorded it just in case. That's disgusting. That's why I want a divorce. I'm sick of you. His face turned beet red, and he stood up, grabbed the recorder, and threw it. Now there's no evidence. He grinned triumphantly. Destruction of property is also considered violent behavior. What? Destroying it is pointless. The data is backed up. And your actions just now were recorded too. He looked startled and glanced around the room. It shows how little you cared about the household. We installed surveillance cameras all over to make sure your father didn't wander off and get hurt. My father-in-law used to move around as he pleased while calling on us to help him. Destroying the voice recorder without any discussion. Everything will be recorded properly. That's sneaky. If the cameras were for my dad, they're no longer necessary now that he's gone. That's not for you to decide. I just hadn't gotten around to removing them yet. Good thing I didn't. He trembled at my words. So, can you tell me why you want a divorce? I won't agree to it until I understand the reason. Because you disregarded me as your husband. Is that your final reason? Remember, I have various records, so think carefully before you speak. He hesitated, realizing he didn't know what was recorded and couldn't risk saying anything careless. Why do you want a divorce? I didn't let up. His face turned from red to pale. What reason would he come up with now? Because you've lost your appeal. He finally said. Since we moved here, you've become too homely and I can't see you as a woman anymore. Isn't that because I was taking care of your father? That's just an excuse. If you wanted to, you could have made an effort to remain attractive. Your laziness disgusts me. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. What's so funny? Try telling that to anyone. No one will understand. He forces his wife to take care of his father, does nothing around the house or with the kids, and shows no interest when she tries to talk. In such a situation, it's impossible for his wife to find the time or energy to maintain her attractiveness. Even he must understand that much. But I know he's just grasping at straws in desperation. But you still want a divorce, right? His face brightened. There are conditions. Name them. I listed my conditions. First, you need to pay alimony. I haven't done anything to warrant paying alimony. I pulled out a file and placed it in front of him. What's this? The file contained numerous photos of him with another woman. Yes, he had been having an affair. And it started even before we moved in with his parents. You wanted me to take care of your father so you could see this woman, right? How did you find out? I looked into it before we moved in. He had always disliked his father. So it was suspicious when he suddenly wanted to live with him and asked me to care for him. When I investigated, this is what I found. The woman was one of his subordinates. He must have thought I was too clueless to figure it out, but I found plenty of evidence. And I kept it all. I hoped that seeing me take care of your father might make you reflect and change your mind. So I decided to turn a blind eye once. But you didn't change. No, you changed for the worse. He looked down, remaining silent. So, I'm asking for alimony from you and that woman. That was my first condition. You imposed caregiving on me so you could have your affair. It's going to be a significant amount, but you need to accept it. He stayed silent. And as for child support, I don't need it. What, really? Yes, we'll offset it. He looked confused. Let's split the children. Adam with you, Sarah with me. That's impossible. If you don't agree, I won't consent to the divorce. He groaned but remained silent. He probably wanted to marry his lover right away. What will you do? After some contemplation, he agreed. Perhaps he thought of sending Adam to a boarding school. There are many ways to handle it. I felt sorry for Adam, but my feelings for him had vanished. My husband's outburst earlier reminded me of his father. And with Adam resembling both of them, I no longer had the confidence to live with him. You mentioned going through a rebellious phase, right? You'd understand him better. I smiled warmly as I said this. We also set other conditions. Property division, moving expenses, and compensation for caring for his father. The total was significant, but he was an elite earner and accepted it. Once these conditions are notarized, I'll submit the divorce papers. I looked genuinely relieved. We had the documents notarized, and he transferred the agreed amount in a lump sum. Then I filed for divorce. Now we're strangers. Feel free to remarry or whatever. But until I find a new place, I'll stay here. That was part of our agreement. Move out as soon as possible. It's unnatural for strangers to live together. He looked visibly displeased. He probably wanted to bring his lover into the house as soon as possible. By the way, I haven't received alimony from your partner yet. I won't leave until I do. What? That's not what we agreed on. What agreement? Your alimony and her alimony are separate matters. The notarized agreement didn't mention anything about his partner. I can't feel secure until I get it. You greedy woman. Greedy? She's the one who stole someone's husband. He couldn't argue with that. Anyway, this is my house. Now that we're strangers, please leave as soon as possible. He pleaded desperately. About that, this house isn't yours. What do you mean? I nodded to his mother, not to my bewildered husband. This house belongs to me. What are you talking about? This house is in my name, so it's not yours. He looked bewildered, unable to comprehend what she was saying. This house originally belonged to her, not your father, so it's not yours. He looks unconvinced by my explanation. Well, that's understandable. I explained the situation to him, now my ex-husband. Your father was actually a son-in-law who married into the Johnson family. All the Johnson assets belong to your mother. What? Your father was embarrassed about being a son-in-law and didn't want you to know. He slumped in defeat. But if it's her property, I'm her heir, so I'll inherit it eventually, right? About that, I've been legally adopted by her. What? When her husband fell ill and we discussed living together, I had a long conversation with her. During that talk, I learned she knew about her son's affair. I was an only child, so my parents brought your father in as a son-in-law to carry on the Johnson name. That's why he acted so arrogant and bossy. Although it's hard to believe now, they had a passionate marriage. Because of the social differences and her being an only child, he agreed to take the Johnson name. His behavior was a mix of affection towards her and his insecurity about being taken in as a son-in-law. Her enduring kindness towards him was because of this complex relationship. Although it seemed a bit distorted, I envied her unwavering love for him. But my parents, your grandparents, never agreed to formally adopt him, so he had no right to inherit our assets. Then why did you adopt Emily? I told her everything, including the likelihood that your father would be difficult. And there was something else we knew. She spoke with significance. We already knew about your affair. We discussed everything, deciding that if he reformed, we would forgive and forget. Sadly, he didn't. Emily has taken good care of your father, and this is partly to make up for your behavior. She treated me like a real mother. And I wanted her to stay with me. Is that too much to ask? Her kind words led me to agree to the adoption. So, you're the one who has to leave. You have no right to live here. Yes, I decided I want to live with her. I don't want to see the woman you're going to remarry. The will states that all my assets go to Emily. Mom, no. He couldn't believe her words. Though he had a legal claim, he would receive only a small portion. Yes, leave and take Adam with you. You're abandoning Adam as his mother? The notary document states we each take one child. You said you understand him. It makes sense for those who understand each other to live together. He had nothing more to say. A few days later, he and Adam left our house. I knew where they were going. He rented a house. Even though he has custody, Adam is still my child, and I can't completely ignore him. Fine, I'll leave. Living with Dad will be better. He's an elite and earns a lot. It's better than being poor with a part-time worker. Adam had no idea. He didn't know his father planned to remarry his affair partner. He didn't know about the massive debt from the divorce. He didn't know about the demotion and pay cut due to the affair being exposed at work, nor the impending transfer. Take care. Contact me if you need anything. I'll never see you again. Don't come crying to Dad if you're in trouble. Women are so stupid. I didn't know how he would react when he learned the truth. As a mother, I felt sorry for him, but his misogyny and distorted personality were beyond my help. Whether my ex-husband can manage as a father is uncertain, but I have no choice but to leave it to him. After the divorce was finalized, I transitioned from part-time to full-time employment. I was originally a pharmacist. Nowadays, it takes 6 years of university to qualify for the national certification, but I obtained mine in 4 years. I chose this job because I wanted to help people. After giving birth, I returned to work part-time for 4 hours a day, but my employer always wanted me to come back as a full-time employee. So, there are no financial concerns. I can enroll Sarah in her desired school and support her chosen path. My ex-husband remodeled the house to be as comfortable as possible, thinking about his own future. Thanks to that, we can live comfortably. My mother-in-law, while taking care of his husband's altar, is now looking forward to finding her own enjoyment in life. It's hard for me to understand what she saw in such an overbearing man, but people's feelings are truly mysterious. Sarah is living freely now that Adam's abusive language is gone. Recently, Adam contacted me. You must be struggling without a man's help. If you want, I can come back. He probably reached out because his father's demotion was confirmed, and they had to move to the countryside. It seems my ex-husband treated his new wife the same way he treated us, and they're already on the brink of divorce. He even called me once, begging for help. Of course, I politely declined. I appreciate the offer, but we're fine for now. Adam, focus on your own life. Goodbye. I said and hung up. Maybe it's cold of me as a mother. But remembering his face, his abusive words just like his grandfather's, I knew I couldn't live with him again. Interestingly, my mother-in-law couldn't tolerate his behavior either, even though she forgave her husband for the same. From now on, the 3 of us women will enjoy a carefree life together. This might be my reward for taking care of my father-in-law for those 2 years. In hindsight, it was just a few years out of my life. I hope to forget the storm in the past and live a peaceful life, like calm waters.